See, this is exactly why they had to win that game last night. Because when you come out with a performance like this one against the Golden State Warriors and you have back-to-back losses in the way that you have these back-to-back losses, it really highlights things of the frustrations of this basketball team. Never thought they were perfect, but again, coming out with some effort in this one would have been nice after the loss that they sustained against the Sacramento Kings. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers Postgame Show presented by Bet365. Once again, as always, download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Bodner, Kyle Nuvek, Divine Givens, and Bree with us. All of you in the chat. I already see we have some super chats already in there. People are already on fire with how this one played out tonight. Just get this team back east and get them away from California right now after seeing that one, because that was an embarrassing one, 139-105. The way that the Golden State Warriors shot the ball, the defensive effort by the Philadelphia 76ers, only 4 players in double figures. And you can't even talk about the double figures in general because it didn't even matter the way this one played out. The Golden State Warriors shot 22 for 39 from 3. Steph Curry was perfect, 8 for 8. And they assisted 42 assists on 53 made baskets, Derek. This one was ugly.
Yeah. When you cover basketball, as long as 3 of us have, I think you really understand that back-to-backs tend to not be the best version of a team that you'll see. And when you have 3 and 4 nights like the Sixers have, you really get typically a bad performance. Now, Joel Embiid didn't play last night. The Warriors have been gone 13 or lost 13 of their last 17. So you thought you still had a really good chance. But you saw in the first 5 minutes of this one that they had absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And if the Warriors just played a C game, they were probably going to come away with it. And the Warriors played much better than a C game. They had an incredible shooting display from the entire team, in part because they got so many driving kick opportunities that those shots were the easiest shots they've taken all year. But I'm really struggling, I think, to balance the serious frustration of having to watch that game and a lot of the annoyances. I'm sitting there, Kyle and I take a lot of notes. Devon does too. And you're sitting there taking a lot of notes. And like midway through a third quarter, it's like, oh, like these little things I'm complaining about, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does matter. And it'll be like, oh, well, Ricky reached on a transition drive and gave up a lane. And, oh, this cut was not defended against. And, oh, that. And at the end of it, you're like, but everything is shit. So when everything's wrong, these little details don't really matter. And I got that way about midway through the third quarter. And it's like, I want to blame Nick Nurse. I want to blame Tyrese Maxey. I want to blame, pretty much everyone outside of Yabusele on the court. But I don't know how much to overreact to it or how much would be an overreaction, because outside, like I said, outside of Joel Embiid, I think everybody was running on tired legs, and it really, really showed. And it showed not only in the legs and the effort, but in the attention to detail and the attentiveness. It was absolutely disastrous. And boy, are the vibes completely different than they were 36 hours ago. Just completely different.
Yeah, I think so. If you were to just look at the box score of that game, you might be able to talk yourself into like, oh, it's second half of back-to-back. The Warriors went crazy from 3 and like shit happens kind of game. But I think that would let them off the hook for their role in establishing the terms of how the game was played, right? What people often say and think in the NBA is like back-to-backs are really tough. But normally the team coming off the game the night before in the first quarter, that's where you can see them like, oh, they threw an immediate haymaker, right? That it was like they're coming off.
They just don't have the stamina to see it through.
Yeah, they can't sustain it in the second half. You lose your legs, you're front rimming shots, you're doing things. The Sixers' effort and execution from the first quarter onward was bullshit.
Garbage. Yes.
It was terrible. Like, use whatever word verbiage. I'm sorry to our friends if I'm not supposed to use these words on air, but like, there's no other way to dress that up and to spin that. And it's all of them, right? Like, so we got into some debates in the Discord tonight about the relative success of each of these guys. And I do think that Joel was better than the rest of them, but that doesn't really mean a whole lot in a 30 whatever loss. But go down the list, right? So Tyrese Maxey, I thought was disgraceful on the closeouts and rotations early. He gave up 2 or 3 open threes to Dennis Schroder. He ends up making some plays later in the game, but by the time he starts getting locked in and engaged on defense, they've already hit 7 or 8 threes, and they've a 15-point lead. And we talk about it all the time. Shooting's contagious, right? You see shots go down from your teammates, or you see one of yours go down. That's just a snowball rolling down the hill. And, oh, by the way, they have the greatest shooter ever. So, not that hard to get cooking when you have that guy on the other team. You go to Joel Embiid. The one thing I think you should really hammer Joel for tonight was the poor transition defense. I don't think he got back well enough. I thought he was jogging early in the game, trying to feel his way into it. You don't have that luxury. And when you are playing Steph and you're playing the Warriors, where he doesn't have to be the guy who's taking the shot in transition, right? His gravity and the attention he commands, people are so consumed by what he's doing. The Warriors just ran right down Main Street several times, including after made baskets for the Sixers, where like Draymond Green is going coast to coast, just red carpet runway out for him, which is just ridiculous. But Joel plays a part in that part of the defense. And I will also say this. I feel like this was just kind of this was more of a Tobias Harris, Paul George game, right? That's how I felt watching him tonight. And I think I wrote this in the recap that I wrote for allphly.com. Clippers fans, and I saw plenty of this myself watching the Clippers in recent years. Clippers fans, one of the things that they hammered last year in Paul George's final year is that, Paul George is this really good defender, and he can, step up and he can switch, and he's a really great floor raiser. But when you need him to check the number one guy, when you got to put a fire out, he or the coach or whoever either doesn't recognize or doesn't want to take that challenge. And I'm not saying that I expect 34-year-old Paul George to be an effective Steph Curry defender. But when you are on the floor and you are watching Jeff Doughton get absolutely destroyed by Steph Curry, there should be something in your chest saying, I got to take that guy, right? You're a former first team all defense, defensive player of the year candidate, still are a high level defender. You have to find it within yourself to say, no. I have that guy. I don't care if it's for 2 minutes until you buy Caleb or somebody else who can help out a little bit of time to come back in there. You have to accept that challenge, and you have to try to help out there, because that's part of why the game gets out of control in the first half and you never have a chance later on. So that's the 3 stars. And then you could go through the whole list, right? Like Joel had a great defensive possession on a switch tonight against Steph Curry. George comes over and they trap him and they're going to get the ball out of his hands. And Caleb Martin is just completely asleep and gets back cut and 2 points anyway. And all the good work that's done is undone. The whole team sucked defensively. The plan sucked. The execution sucked. The effort sucked. Nothing good about it. And we are believers in two-way basketball on this show, right? We love rebounding, defense, all the little things. There was none of it. And I don't find it acceptable, because it was not a fatigue problem. It was a pure effort problem from the first quarter onward.
Big time lackluster performance by everybody. You could see it from the very start, as you guys laid it out already. And just the fact that you did not see that effort, especially when we talk about washing the game away from last night, looking at a little bit of the film to see what happened, where you can correct some of the mistakes, picking yourself up from the bootstraps because of what happened last night, to make sure that you rebound from that disappointing effort in the final stages of that game, knowing that you're going to come in here with a team that also is not that great, but if they get hot, they can get going, they can get you, and they can hit you, and they can hit you fast. And for them to have no effort, and you saw that defensively, as you guys just laid out, very, very early, the fact that Tyrese Maxey did not look like he had a pep in the step. He looked defeated after a while. Yeah. And Kyle, you said he got back to it a little bit later. Yeah, he had a couple of block shots. He contested a couple of shots there on the end, but he just looked defeated early when the shots started falling, as if he did not have an answer. And You may not have the answer, but the effort still needs to be there. And then once again, we saw it one more time. Shots are not falling for him. He's now looking to the officials once again when he's going to the basket and wondering why he's not getting that call. Miscommunication from everybody, as you just laid out the Caleb Martin piece. Caleb Martin got ticked off at Yabusele because it looked like he was late to a rotation. He was not there on the back end. Timeout Sixers and Nick Nurse, because that happened one too many times. It was just over and over and over again, the snowball effect. And even when they got it down to 10 points at one point, it never really seemed like they were actually going to get back into the game. It was just a natural run in basketball that happens to stop a little bit of the bleeding. And then once the three started to fall, it happened. And as you said, it was contagious. Draymond Green felt disrespected by leaving him open. He and both Jackson Davis were running Embiid up and down the floor because they knew they had the speed advantage to get out there in transition, whether it was a made basket or a rebound. They wanted to make him run and put the basketball right on his back and get to the rim and see how he was going to respond to it. And he didn't. And it wasn't everybody else's fault in trying to clean up his mess because he was unable to stay with those two as they were pushing the pace, getting up and down the floor. This one was ridiculous. And again, that's why last night was important. You don't let up stuff like last night when you never know what's going to happen the next night. And look, guys, I could have asked you guys, hey, if they go 4-2 on this trip, how you guys going to feel? I probably feel great, but it's how it happens. Now, they haven't beaten Brooklyn. They'll go 4-2 on this trip. But again, it's how it happens. And even if they beat Brooklyn on Saturday, we're still going to look at these as how these happen and look at the warts and some of the issues that they have, as you just talked about with the way things played out with this basketball team that make this one so frustrating. I saw it already in the chat. Still frustrated from last night's loss. This didn't help when you have to now come back, watch a game like this one, and it's a blowout from the very start. Not even a chance to win this basketball game.
And this was, if you're going to make an argument that Embiid should only play in one of these two games, and it should have been, against Sacramento, the reason is because you sort of expect that the effort in this one wasn't going to be great. If you're going to win this one, you're going to need like a dominant 40-10 performance from Joe, because you kind of figured that Paul George wasn't going to have a ton of legs, that Maxey wasn't going to have a ton of legs. It came out being worse than you would have expected, but the problems were still somewhat predictable. And I do think a lot of the focus comes with being fatigued as well. I think that tends to drift when you're playing 3 nights in 4. So maybe you play Joe against the Kings. You make sure you get that one, and you just sort of like punt this one. Still, it sucked. Everyone kind of sucked. It was even Joel. And Joel was probably the least of their problems, at least in terms of the big three. When this was still a competitive game, I thought he gave you maybe a C- type game. It wasn't, he was far from the problems and far from the core of the problems. You would have liked him to be a little more aggressive offensively and force the issue. But he wasn't great in any real respect. But it was, like I said, I think a lot of this was predictable and just would have been, if they could just close out that game last night, you wouldn't necessarily feel great because you never feel great when you lose by 34 points, but you would at least understand it a little more.
Derek, I don't disagree that when you say it was predictable, but with the way that it happened last night, you feel like, you tie your shoes up and you get out there and you try to make up for the mistake that happened last night at the end of the game. And I don't disagree with any of the logic of what you said of trying to get a win first, maybe against Sacramento, knowing that you wouldn't get the same effort on the second night of a back-to-back. But after it did happen, the way that it did happen against Sacramento, that's why I thought this would be a much closer game, because the effort would be there, despite the fact that they would have to dig a little bit deeper. And look, they've been before tonight, 10 of 13, 10 of 14. They've been on this fantastic run. That's why I thought maybe they would actually show us a little bit more of what we've seen over the last month versus what we have seen these last 51 minutes of basketball to lose these two basketball games.
Yeah, no, I mean, I expected, to Kyle's point, I sort of expected them to come out real strong in the first 6 minutes, maybe the first quarter, and then run out of gas. If I was going to pick away from them to lose, I quite frankly thought they had a chance to win this game because the Warriors have been struggling so much. Although when Steph comes out and plays that version of a Steph game, you probably weren't going to win that unless Maxey went off as well, and that was very clearly not. I thought they would have real good effort for, like I said, the first 6 minutes, first quarter, maybe even first half, and eventually fall out. So yeah, I agree. It was disappointing for sure. I was just saying, like, hey, maybe you should have played Embiid last night just to bank one of these 2 wins.
Oh, sure.
Because this was, somewhat predictable.
Similar to how when we talked about the Charlotte and Cleveland back-to-back, where we discussed, you book the win that you know that you most likely have a chance to win. Book it against Charlotte and see where the chips fall against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Sorry, Kyle, I cut you off. I know you were about to say.
No, you're good. Listen, I cut you guys off all the time. You don't have to apologize for that. Few things. One, notably, they would have gotten fined if they rested Joel tonight because of the fun national television rules that we have in today's NBA. So I don't know how much that goes into their calculus, but that's certainly something that is out there at the very least. But I would also go a different way where we're weighing, should he have played in this one versus that one? And do you go for the more bankable win versus the other game that's more up for grabs? I can't and don't and won't believe in this plan for Joel that is basically we're not going to play him in back-to-backs. I just simply look at where they are. It's now January 3rd. Game was played on January 2nd. January 3rd, they have 12 or 13 wins at this point. They are outside of the play-in tournament as it stands right now. Mm-hmm. And they are still treating it as if it's the season they thought they were going to have when they laid this plan out in July, August, September, October.
Totally agree.
And saying, well, yeah, we can get away with Joel not playing in these games, and we can just play him if we have back-to-backs, we're going to play him in the one that we think is maximizing our chance to win both games, right? Or maybe we're loading up to – I don't think you can pick and choose. I think if you want to be a serious team and a team that contends, I just don't see a world where you can have Joel be a part-time player between now and mid-April. I just fundamentally will never believe in it. And I think the closer we get to the playoffs actually being here, which, by the way, trade deadline is a little over a month from now, and then the playoffs are a little over 2 months from now. We are not that far away from playoff basketball, the whole goal of the season, the reason a plan exists, the reason they're not playing them in back-to-backs. That is not all that far away at this point. And they do not look close to a team that can consistently win games against the highest level of competition. They can't keep guys healthy. They can't keep the offense flowing. They can't keep their defense consistent. Like, there are a million different problems. Nick Nurse just throwing rotations at the wall and seeing what works. You can't live in this world where you say, we don't know if Joel is going to play tonight, right? And if that's the world you live in, you have to be honest about it, and you probably have to be sellers. You have to just give up the dream of saying we're going to contend this year. You are not limping into the playoffs and winning anything of note, right? In NBA history, there is one 6 seed that won a title. It was the Houston Rockets when they went back-to-back when Hakeem was the best player with Jordan on hiatus the first year and coming out of hiatus in the second year, right? It's the only time there has been a under the top half of the seeding champion in the history of the league. If you are not gunning it 100 miles an hour between now and the playoffs, you are cooked. You are done. This team does not have the institutional synergy and chemistry to get it done. They don't, like, maybe they make a trade and it's like the magic bullet and they get the perfect role player, but you have holes in the roster. So what you can control is this guy is going to have to play, right? And if he can't do that physically, okay, but you need to be honest about what's happening here. The season is worthless if that guy can't play all the time and you can't develop a real identity between now and the end of the year. It's just that simple for me.
All right, and with that, we're going to leave that there. Let that breathe a little bit because that was great from Kyle. So when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about everything that happened here. We'll give you the player of the game because we have to, and we'll also talk about a little NBA news that just pretty much, broke while the game was going on a little bit more. We'll get into all of that as we hang out with you. Sixers embarrassed 139-105 by the Golden State Warriors. This postgame show is presented by Bet365. I know this basketball team has you pulling your hair out, everybody. I have the place for you to go. Start the new year off right. Glad hair restoration. Yes, they have you pulling your hair out. It's very frustrating. You were already losing it as it was, and now you have to go through this problem. Well, Glad has teamed up with Dr. Morgenstern, of course, from the great Morgenstern Center for Orbital and Facial Plastic Surgery. They welcome the Glad group to practice, and they have done fantastic work together and taking over for Dr. Glad. It's the same peerless approach to the care, same expert team, same unmatched Glad system, same state-of-the-art location, and the same stellar results as well. Glad Hair can help during all stages of hair loss with leading-edge treatments from prevention and restoration, including laser light therapy, non-invasive TED treatments, vitamin supplementation, and of course, the hair restoration surgery. Each patient receives a complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment, and caring patient advocates work with you from the first phone call to the last follow-up visit. They understand that the decision can be emotional and challenging, and they're here to help make your experience simple and stress-free. So again, if you're pulling your hair out because your basketball team is disappointing you at 13 and 19 right now, bald is now optional, but maybe not through that way, and you want to get your hair back. If you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, Glad Hair has the right treatment for you. Regain your confidence. Visit gladhairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started.
Kyle,
I can't hear you. Yeah, you're
muted, buddy.
Damn it. I hit it twice. Well, what I was saying is that it's the winter months. It's cold. It's bad enough being cold. It's bad enough that it's dark all the time. You don't want to be sick on top of that. Well, Rite Aid is there and has your back. They want to help protect you from pneumonia. Adults age 50 and older are now eligible for the vaccine. Millions of people get pneumonia every year, according to the CDC. It's a respiratory illness, and fall and winter are times when germs that cause respiratory disease typically spread more in our communities. So now's the time to get vaccinated and help yourself stay healthy and avoid getting pneumonia and ruining your time during the winter. Some people who get pneumonia have mild symptoms, but there are others who experience very serious complications. So the vaccine is one of the best ways to keep yourself healthy. It's usually no cost with your insurance. Getting vaccinated is easy. Just walk into your local Rite Aid or schedule online at riteaid.com. Unsure of what you may need? Just ask your pharmacist for a personal recommendation. Stop by your local Rite Aid today.
Get some tissues. Wipe away those tears of frustration from the Sixers' loss. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Postgame Show presented by Bet365 in this one. And man, just a total frustration. And Kyle, just to add on what you were saying, because you were spot on with, number one, you were there from the beginning, both you and Derek talking about it from the very start of how much you did not like this plan. All right, accepted it for what it was, but not necessarily liking the plan. But when the plan was put together, you were 0-0. You were expected to get off to a much better start. Maybe the record would have been 19-13, reverse the record overall. And since then, things have changed. So maybe the plan also has to change, because this is not the same pathway that you thought you were going to be when this plan was put together from the very beginning. So that's why, again, you are 100% right on that, because if he's going to be going in and out of these games, we've already seen that they cannot win. What type of trade are they going to make at the trade deadline to potentially put them over the hump if they do push themselves into the play-in tournament, have to fight and claw to get to a playoff round in the first round against whatever team it might be? How are they going to do that if he's in and out of the lineup this way and we see this team playing the way that it is? You just mentioned Paul George in the Tobias Harris role, because if that's what you're going to get when he is on the floor and we're not going to see those three together and playing at their best, they have no shot. So things have changed, and that's where the adjustment from them now has to come. We said it last night, 19 games, including tonight, 19 games before the trade deadline to see what this basketball team looks like. And they don't have a lot of room for error. And that's why last night was important. Tonight is important. And again, things have changed drastically since that plan was put together at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and look, like, if the plan has to be, I'm not saying you have to throw Joel into complete danger, right? Maybe the answer is like he plays lower minutes or he plays really limited minutes, but just gives them something, right? Like a little bit of Joel Embiid is better than no Joel Embiid in some of these games, right? And so it's got to be a conversation between him, the medical staff, and everybody else on that. Because as you say, Devon, like it is a plan, but when a plan doesn't work from a tactical perspective, you know, for like a coaching perspective, which I do want to get to coaching at some point tonight, you revise the plan, or you want the plan to be revised. You adjust, you make changes, or sometimes you ride it out and you say, the results haven't borne out what we think has been good process, but it's just because you came in thinking you're going to do one thing doesn't mean, well, there's nothing we can do. You just kind of sit there with your hands down and say, I don't know what to do about it. I think what you do about it is you either have to commit to trying to be a serious team, or we can all drop the charade and you're just going to split the baby, lose the pick, maybe miss the playoffs, or maybe sneak in and get pasted. Like that's the road you're marching down right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't necessarily even entirely agree here, especially when the one thing that they could have adjusted was playing Joel Embiid last night. There is no world where I really want Joel Embiid with his compromised knee playing 3 games in 4 nights. I don't really want that. And you talk about the plan not working. Up until last night, they'd won 10 of the last 13 games. I think that 3-4 with Joel Embiid's knee is borderline reckless. And with the way they were climbing back up the standings, I don't think I'd take that risk, if I'm being completely honest. I certainly don't think the plan in terms of Embiid missing the first 9 games, only playing 10 games up until this point in the season, that wasn't the plan. But if the plan is don't play 3 games in 4 nights, I'm still on board with that. And if that means you're going to be an 8 seed and you have to do something that has almost never happened, I would rather do that than put undue risk on Joel's knee. I don't change that much, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, well, I think some of the win streak is they had a really favorable play-in schedule. Not even like who they played. It's just they didn't have to put him in any sort of risk, right? And now this whole upcoming month is you have a lot of rest disadvantage games. And you're at a point where you just can't keep throwing away those games. I don't necessarily even disagree with you on the 3 games in 4 nights thing. Like, I get it, but also they have proven they can't be trusted to win these games without him. So I don't know what you do. Essentially, you just have to admit you can't win those, and you're going to end up the 9th or 10th seed.
I think there are no great solutions when a man has a knee that's compromised, if I'm being completely honest. I think every solution kind of sucks, and that's just the situation they're in.
All right, so that leaves you up to the other two.
I'm incredibly disappointed that we're having this conversation, though, not because of what happened with Joe earlier in the season, but we all thought they would be better at managing these games without Joel Embiid, and they've been an abject disaster. And because of that, we're debating whether or not you should push Joel Embiid to play 3 games in 4 nights on a very obviously compromised knee when he doesn't look himself. That is an organizational failure. That's Paul George not stepping up like we thought he could. That's Tyrese Maxey going the first month of the season, not being able to shoot and regressing as a passer. That is Daryl Morey signing 3 guys who should be collecting AARP cards and keeping an open 15th roster spot when it's obvious that, Gordon and Lowry and Reggie can't play. Why are we keeping a 15th roster spot? It is frustrating up and down. And because of that, we're having conversations we shouldn't be having, quite frankly.
So evaluate.
Nailed it.
Yeah. And with that, and with tonight's game, to your point, your evaluation, of course, you said it at the very top of how poor everybody played, but in particular, Tyrese Maxey and Paul George, your thoughts from tonight?
I mean, Tyrese looked like a combination of drunk and tired. It was really disheartening the way he started that game. It was, I think at one point he was 1 for 5 on mostly uncontested layups. His defense was atrocious, as Kyle
Yeah.
laid out early on. His passing was mostly not there. And he made that one pass when he got trapped out on the 3-point line right at the end of the half, threw it, and just like watched the ball lay there and didn't even attempt to pick it up. That was one of the worst efforts from Tyrese Maxey I've seen over the course of his career. And, I think the narrative of him and his defense over the last month was deserved. I think he's playing much better defense. He's obviously playing much better offensively. I'm willing to throw this out as a one-night occurrence, but it was one of the worst halves of Tyrese Maxey's that he's played in a long time. And even for this year, where he started off so poorly offensively, he was just a disaster on both ends of the court in a way that he rarely is.
Yeah, and I will say this. I'm tired of watching him complain about calls he's not getting. At a certain point, it's the boy who cried wolf, right? Like, I'm sympathetic to the fact that he's a smaller guard and a big man, big wing league. And there are certainly times where he doesn't get a call. But there are a lot more times where he's not initiating contact. He's fading away from the guy who's guarding him. And frankly, there are a lot of times where teams know how to load up against him because they know he can't make or won't make the passes to the open shooters or the guys around the floor. So once you get into it, when you break down the film at the level that these guys do, you can time your jumps and time your rotations and time where you need to be to a point that you can minimize your risk for fouling somebody, right? And that's a lot of what they do. The late help comes at the same time. He generally is not going into the chest of shot blockers, right? It's a lot of the runners, the push shots, the falling away into the baseline, and he's on his back and he's staring up at the sky and yelling at the ref and saying, what's happened to me? I will tell you this. Nobody that is as liked and is as nice as Tyrese Maxey is going to have a conspiracy against him by NBA officials. They're not just not calling fouls against him because they don't like him, right? Like, he's not drawing enough fouls, and that is a
Kelly Oubre might have a conspiracy
against
him. Yeah, but
right. Like, there is no way that he's not getting calls because the rest don't like him or the league doesn't want him to get calls or he's not this caliber player. Like, he's not drawing fouls. Maybe there's one a game where you could argue it's borderline or whatever, but a lot of times he's just bouncing off of people and going into the stands, and it's like, I don't know what you want, dude. Like, go harder, go stronger. Or when he has played well this year, when he's passed well and when he's gotten into the mid-range, sometimes it's the extra dribble, get all the way to the rim. Sometimes it's an extra couple dribbles, go under the rim, do the Steve Nash, look back out. You have an open trail shooter. You got a guy on the wing, whatever it is. You have to adjust to how teams are playing you. And it just, it's the same thing, beating his head over and over and over into the same coverages and failing in the same ways.
I thought in the second half last night, he had a great play where he kept his dribble against the Kings, got to the basket and finished. It was during one of their runs where the Kings were forced to call a timeout before things went haywire at the end of the game, to your point, Kyle. And even tonight, when he had that first runner, it was a little runner, that push shot that he made. Steph Curry made the 3, he made the 2, a little push shot. I'm like, okay. He got to the basket a couple of other times and just flat out missed them. Missed them.
I mean, he missed 4 just gimme layups.
Flat out missed them
tonight. So that's that's a separate thing. I'm not expecting Tyrese moving forward to miss wide open.
No. Right? But that goes into the frustration of not getting the call. You already are pissed off at yourself because you missed these easy shots that you know you should make. You're already getting your head beat in this game. So all of that stuff just compounds all of it. And for that, we've talked about it for a while now. And as you said it, the complaining has to stop. I mean, just go out there and play. They're going to give you the call. If you are fouled, they are going to give you the call. But you are so fast and you're fading away, the contact isn't there because you're going the other way, away from the body of the defender, and they're not going to give you that call. So, and just for him to miss those layups the way that he did tonight, everything was bad with this one tonight. Tyrese Maxey, the shooting wasn't there. He made a couple of shots late and all. And as we said, he did have a couple of defensive plays that were pretty decent later on, where he did close out on Dennis Schroder. Yep. Couple of blocks that he had
He's
there.
He's getting real good at that rear view contest. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, you, like the Matisse type of. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So he did those things, but you needed more from him tonight, and maybe he is tired. I know it's the I can't remember who it was that's always in here saying Tyrese is tired. He is tired. He needs to get some rest out there on the floor. Well, maybe he is, but right now they're playing him these minutes, and he has to. You better love somebody. You better love somebody. Love somebody. He's always talking about how tired he is, and maybe he is, but right now he's the one that's going to have to. And we're not ignoring the fact that he's playing all these minutes. We talked a bunch about Lonnie Walker last night. We discussed how at the trade deadline,
Eric just brought it up again.
I'm going to bring it up every show now.
Exactly. So this is something we hear you. You better love somebody. But when he is out there, he has to do his part too and play under control, play at his speed, and incorporate the mid-range. If they're, again, going to give you the mid-range, take the mid-range, and that other stuff will play itself out for you to get a better look, a better opportunity at a better shot. And that's where it was tonight. He just wasn't good at all. We do have to give a player of the game before we get to our break. We got a player of the game. Have to do it. I mean, he did. We have to do it. Right. The other option was Gershon Yabusele, who played well coming off the bench, but Joel with 28 and 14, 11 for 14 from the free throw line, 2 turnovers. Just got over the number of 27 and a half, by the way, of our presenting sponsor, Bet365, of hitting the parlay. Dennis Schroder had 6 assists to go over the 5.5. Again,
Gambling Gibbons was a winner tonight, even if nobody else was.
The only winner tonight. So hopefully you guys tailed responsibly on that one. But Joel Embiid, Derek, put it in the column there for Joel Embiid. The only other one, the option was Gershon Yabusele again.
First half, Gershon would have been my player of the game. Unfortunately, 100%. There's 2 halves. Joel Embiid came out, had that big third quarter. And look, I know some people are going to probably push for Gershon anyway. It's 28 and 14 to 13 and 6. Like there's just one of them had a much bigger. Yeah.
There's a big difference. All right. We'll come back, folks, and we'll give you our final thoughts on some things. Talk about the big story in the NBA tonight outside of the Sixers getting their doors blown off in this one. We'll talk about the non-Heat culture going on in Miami. We'll do that one too, because there's a problem. There's been a problem brewing in Miami, and we'll talk about that when Sixers lose big, 139-105. Next game, Saturday in Brooklyn, final game of the 6-game road trip before heading back to Philadelphia. This is the PHLY Sixers Postgame Show presented by Bet365.
All right, guys, we all know how hard it is to win without proper coaching. If you've got kids, TrueMark has the ultimate playbook for teaching financial responsibility with a free Greenlight account. The Greenlight app is changing the game, helping kids and teens learn how to earn, save, and spend wisely. They can set up savings goals, track their spending, and even get an allowance all right there in the Greenlight app. And here's the really cool part. Each kid gets their own debit card, so they can make purchases and learn real-world money skills while you stay in control from your phone. You get peace of mind, and they get freedom to make smart decisions with their money. It's like coaching your kid through their very own financial game. And for TrueMark Financial members, it's free. With the holidays right around the corner or having just passed, now is a perfect time to introduce your kids to Greenlight. Get signed up today. Visit TrueMark.com/Greenlight for more information.
And I also have to tell you about, as we hang out with you here on this post game, Rothman. Just got to tell you about my team, hanging out with the team, Rothman Orthopedics. They make sure you're good overall. You're getting out there. You got your New Year's resolution. You're saying, I'm going to get in the gym. I'm going to do all the things I need to do to, get my body right. And maybe you tweak a little shoulder or maybe a knee or an ankle, and you have to go get checked out with Rothman Orthopedics. They are the place for you. They specialize in you. They specialize in me and helping me get back from my ACL and my Achilles. And Rothman Orthopedics, the 200-plus fellowship-trained physicians, they subspecialize in the specific areas of the body, as I just mentioned. Multitude of orthopedic services, including hip, knee, spine, shoulder, and elbow, foot, ankle, hand, and wrist, and so many more. Rothman proudly serves dozens of communities across Pennsylvania and New Jersey with 30-plus convenient offices, urgent cares, and walk-in center. So if you are at the gym, or maybe you're playing basketball and you do tweak something and you can't get to that ER and you want to go to the urgent care or walk-in center, they have it right there for you. Patients will find the full spectrum of orthopedic care at Rothman Orthopedics. From diagnosis to discharge, they provide their patients with every service and procedure necessary, such as x-rays, orthotics, bracing, MRIs, physical therapy, and more. So if you're looking to get some help and you need it fast, Rothman Orthopedics, they specialize in orthopedics and they will do it right. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Postgame Show presented by Bet365. And let's get to the Super Chats, because we do have a few of those that we want to throw in there and recognize the folks. Our good buddy Jake M is here. No double fatigue a factor in play, but Maxey's body language was pathetic from the start. First time that was ever an issue for him. Good night. Thanks, Jake M, for that one. Yeah, we talked about the body language not being great from the start. We addressed that.
No, it was an atypical. I've legitimately, I don't know if I've ever seen that kind of a game from Maxey. It was stunning.
Not good.
Not good. All right. Obafemi, is that how you pronounce Obafemi? Should not be able to keep Yabusele with the cap space going up by 10% next year. That's about $14 million. So Derek knows the conversation that we have a lot.
Unfortunately, that is not how the salary cap works. The Sixers they're going to be way over the cap, way over the cap. The cap going up 10% doesn't matter. When the Sixers have like legitimately $180 million in committed salary. Right now, we're talking about a $154 million cap. You are not going to have the cap go up by 30%, which is not even legally allowed to do. Sixers are not going to have cap room. Said this before, but they're going to have to use an exception if they want to bring him back. It's probably going to be the taxpayer mid-level at about $5.5 million. Very slight chance that could be the full mid-level, which would then give them a real legitimate chance of bringing him back, but they would have to move some salaries to do so. So that you have to use a mid-level is a TLDR.
Get mathed.
That's right. We need calculator. We need that one. Or get math right there. Citizens X follows up with another super chat as well. Even if the Sixers make the play-in, how far are we going? Fire sale to contending playoff teams. Time to rebuild. McCain, Maxey are good building blocks. Ooh, good building blocks there, Kyle. Both McCain and Maxey.
I'm gonna leave that one because I don't. We'll have a conversation another day about all this.
Yeah.
If Joel Embiid is a regular or at least regular adjacent basketball player and like he's only missing back-to-backs, I don't think they're going to be sellers. The question would be, will they be buyers? I think that would be the much more legitimate question.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I just want to, because Kyle sort of touched on it. I don't want to spend too much time because it's 1:11 in the morning. Kyle talked a lot about doubting the plan. I am doubting the plan hard of having a 15th open run. You will not get through the next 6 weeks with McCain out and Reggie Jackson, Kyle Lowry being and Eric Gordon being legitimately necessary players. They are too bad. You can't rely on any of them. They should not be playing in a regular rotation. You need to do something now. And again, I want to be clear. Keeping a 15th roster spot open does not preserve any flexibility whatsoever. They cannot get to the second apron. They cannot take back more salary in a trade because they're over the first apron. There's no real way for them to add salary right now. Keeping a 15th roster spot open only saves Joshua Harris tax money, and I don't give a damn. I cannot watch Kyle Lowry start another game of basketball. I don't blame Kyle Lowry. I blame Nick Nurse, and I blame Daryl Morey. Fix it. I don't care about Josh Harris's tax bill. Don't care. Don't care.
Get calculated. So to add to that,
you got your depth out in minutes tonight. I mean, come on, man.
But that only highlights Derek's point, right?
Yes.
He got absolutely destroyed by Steph Curry and gave you nothing on the other end. And again, that's not his fault. Jeff Doughton, I have zero expectations that you're going to have a positive contribution in a game where you come in and it's already like the house is on fire. Like, oh boy, here comes Jeff Doughton with his miniature fire extinguisher. He's got things under control. Like there's just, you have to get somebody in here who can play real minutes. And I will say this, because I said I wanted to touch on coaching. I won't go too deep because I know it's late, but I don't think Nick Nurse is doing a good job with this team. And what I think I was most down on this performance about is more of a macro problem, in that I think Nick Nurse's style is not a good match for what style this team needs, which is to say his philosophy on offense is simplistic, right? Talk about it all the time. He doesn't want to run a lot of complicated stuff, wants to play free-flowing basketball. You're coming out of DHOs. It's 0.5 decision-making. And it's not to say they don't run things. They have some wrinkles and some sets and some things that I like. But he's not someone who generally is like, oh, we're setting up the chess pieces every time down. And I don't even necessarily want a coach generally who is that type of guy. I don't need a drill sergeant, tactician type guy. But I think this team might need one, right? Like, I think this team needs a more hands-on approach than the one that they're getting in terms of the play-to-play, possession-to-possession, quarter-to-quarter stuff, because you just go through too many periods where it's like, what the hell are these guys doing? And you end up with a lot of possessions where it's one thing when you're running the same plays over and over again and you're getting Joel the ball at the nail. When Joel's catching the ball with his feet straddling the three-point line and his pickup point is way far away from the basket, and he's settling for these garbage foot on the line long twos over, smaller defenders. That's not just a failure on Joel. That's a failure of the offense and what has been designed and what is being run. And on top of that, as Derek is saying, as Devon, you're saying, you're doing things like starting Kyle Lowry when Yabusele is playing fairly well in that game, or at least playing well in the first half. You come back in the second half and you start Lowry again. He's still on the floor to open the third quarter after stinking it up the night before. Like the process has just been bad on so many different levels. And I don't know how you fix it without Nick Nurse changing his whole approach and how he goes about coaching a basketball team. Like, it's just, he's going to have to fundamentally shift some of his priorities. If we're talking about changing the plan, this needs his plan and his way and his approach absolutely needs to change, because it is not working.
And we've seen him do this before, where he said that he was going to. We saw it with McCain. McCain came off the bench. Someone else started. And when he saw how it worked out in the first half, coming out of the locker room, McCain was in the starting lineup because he saw the adjustment that needed to be made, to your point, and that was not made again tonight. Quickly, just to ask you, though, as you talk about Derek, you can't see this anymore. You can't go through it anymore. We're seeing Kyle Lowry on the floor. They need some help. Well, in the interim, I know we talked about it a little bit last night outside of the Lonnie Walker piece, and if they're not going to make a trade until February 6th, with that roster spot, do you maybe look to add someone who's a free agent right now to give you some help at the ball handling? Is that something that you would like for them to do?
Yes. And I don't have Lonnie Walker's a name that is very obvious just because he was available.
Yeah.
And I'm not telling you Lonnie Walker solves anything. I'm telling you that you have your four options on the roster right now are a disaster, and you have to try. If the only thing getting in your way from trying, and again, not a solution, not a guarantee, nothing like that. If the only thing getting in your way is a little bit of Josh Harris's money, then what are we doing here? Like, we're sitting here talking about playing Joel Embiid 3 games in 4 nights because they can't win a game without him. Part of the reason that you can't win a game without him is you only have one real legitimate guard on the floor. Jared McCain went down. You have to do something to try to adjust. You can't go the next 6 weeks with this roster. You just can't do it.
All right. Yep. All right. Let's pivot quickly to the other one that maybe this is the answer, Kyle. You go to Miami and you get Jimmy Butler because he wants out.
I was trying to do the announcer voice and I blanked on what's the town in Texas Jimmy is from? I'm blanking. I used to know it. It's a very specific Jimmy Butler hometown. This is real live. So it's like Tomball
Houston.
or Tomball.
Oh,
no.
Tomball. He was born in Houston, but he grew up in
yeah.
Tomball. Yep.
Yeah.
Marcus Blackstock says Tomball. Thanks, Marcus.
Yeah. Thank you, Marcus. Yeah, I knew it was like, but the way it's said is not how I'm saying it. Whatever. Anyway, from Tomball, Texas, Jimmy Butler. I mean, listen, according to what Shams put out there tonight, no restrictions on where he's saying he could go. The guys that he didn't like around here are out of the front office.
If you didn't see the Shams report, it was basically Jimmy Butler would be happy to play for 29 NBA teams. The one that he's not being the Miami Heat.
Yeah, it's. I think this is a topic that probably is worth an off-day show and the next.
And
week.
not at 1:19 in the morning when I'm barely awake.
But
honestly, I want to pat ourselves all on the back because we all stayed up for all 3 of these games. That's pretty impressive.
I mean, I don't take any credit because I'm up anyway. Derek, I give you credit for. I'm sure you're running on fumes. I think you're the earliest of the trio here. So
yeah, he is.
I think pretty comfortably too. So
of
the
all
fact
4
that we're
of
all
us.
still here, I would root for a Jimmy Butler trade to the Sixers just for pure chaos. Like, I'm not even because I believe it'll help the team, but just because if we're gonna go full sicko this year, you might as well just bring that guy who's gonna, he'll come back and it'll look like Pete Wentz on media day again, and first emo basketball player ever. Like, just do something weird. I don't know.
It'll make Joel happy too. Maybe get a little boost of Joel.
Yeah, for 4 months before Jimmy leaves for another team.
Exactly. Oh, good times at 1:20 in the morning. Absolutely. Oh boy. Well, we'll talk about that when we have more time. Had to bring it up because it is the top story down in the NBA.
Wait, hold on. M the Gorilla said, "Here comes Jeff Dowden with his shook up can of Sprite." That's an even better one than the mini fire extinguisher. Shout out to M the Gorilla for that comment that made me laugh at 1:20. Shout out to everybody who's here. We might as well. Let's just roll it right into the roll call, right?
Let's do the roll call. Let it world famous roll call.
Thank you, everybody who is still here and has been here with us on back-to-back nights. Well, we're shaking up some Sprite all right over here. Thank you, everyone who's hanging out with us now and always, but especially on these West Coast trips, man, because these are brutal, even when they win, because we're up late. And I'm worried about Derek's health and well-being in these moments. But you guys are still here, and I love y'all for that. Thank you to Juan. Thank you to Citizen X. Thank you to Brian Knight. Thank you to T. Harris. Thank you to Noob, who says, "Do you want a Sprite cranberry?" A little festive theme for our Jeff Dowden Sprite.
We'll mix it up a little bit.
Sprite t-shirt or something. Thank you to my girl Winona, still hanging out with us until the night. Thank you to Mar, to Vic, to Jess with the purple heart. Certainly thank you to M the Gorilla, the Sprite King of PHLY.
What up, M? Get that Sprite ready.
Thank you to Marcus Blackstock. Thank you to Grump. Thank you to AC Philla, who's taking on all comers in the chat as always. Thank you to PHLY guy, who's always optimistic, but sometimes a little upset. We're getting a little therapy done here. Late night. Thank you to Bootzilla, to Cannoli.
Boots.
You better love somebody.
Love somebody.
ECW and WWF. Oh, man, there's a throwback right there.
That is.
Thank you, my friend, for stopping by. Our guy Al, the 2-minute warning, also stopping by. I'm pretty sure
what up, Al?
My guy Jay of the Jungle was in here at some point. Thank you to Jay. Hope you heard the shout out last night. Thank you to Tristan checking in with us. Guys, there's a lot of you tonight.
There's a lot of people
commenting. I'm going to end on this one. Thank you to the Internet Wizards Society for checking in. And thank you to our super chatters. I know Jake M. I'm blanking on who are our other 2 super chatters. I wish I remembered.
Yeah.
Thank you to all our super chatters tonight. You guys already got your shout outs earlier, but I'm shouting you out again. Please, on the way out, can you hit that subscribe button for me? Hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. If you hit the thumbs up, I can't promise it'll make the Sixers play any better. I don't know how much of a difference it really makes in the algorithm, but I can promise it'll be a nice set of heart hands for super producer Bree, who's here with us every single night. She's on the back-to-back. She's behind the scenes. She's still awake. And hopefully this time she doesn't cut Devon out in the middle of talking as we're going to end the show. Thank you to Bree. Thank you to all of you.
All Friday.
There you go.
Devon, all Friday. Take us out. All Friday, back Saturday, 5:30 pregame show. Game time at 6 o'clock. We get to see D'Angelo Russell, the new look Brooklyn Nets. What will happen? Brother. Oh, man, we'll see what happens in that one. Everybody have a great rest of your night. Get some rest. We'll see you on Saturday. Enjoy your Friday. We'll talk to you then. The show is presented by Bet365. As always, they are never ordinary. Make sure you download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Everybody, have a great rest of your night. We'll see you on Saturday.
We all silly like the mayor.